I am an endurance athlete. One of the bigger endurance challenges was rowing solo across the Atlantic Ocean. So rowed from West Africa to South America completely alone, no follow boat.
Hi,
Hey, how are you?
I'm really well. How are you?
Good.
Who may I be speaking with?
I'm Katie.
Katie.
Yeah.
And where are you based, Katie?
I'm in Portland, Maine.
You know what? That's one of the 4 states that I haven't been to, Maine.
Oh, are you planning on making a trip?
Yeah, I mean, Maine, Vermont, and New Hampshire, and North Dakota.
Yeah. I mean, if you do come visit, probably not now.
Not now. Is it still snowing up there?
Yeah, it's holding on. It's like the longest winters. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. So I'm assuming that you know a little bit about me. I clearly don't know anything about you. So tell me a little bit so I know where to take us.
Yeah. So I am an endurance athlete. I do different endurance challenges to raise money for clean water. So one of the bigger endurance challenges was rowing solo across the Atlantic Ocean. So rowed from West Africa to South America completely alone, no follow boat. And that was called Row for Water. And yeah, so I'm all about doing these big, ridiculous challenges to raise money for clean water. Right now, about 45,000 people have gained access to clean water through events. And then my last endurance challenge was rollerblading across the Florida Keys, doing an ultra marathon every day. Yeah,
It's amazing.
it's fun.
So
Yeah.
hold on. How do you row from Africa to, did you say it was South America?
Yeah.
Explain that to me, because you must have become a different human being when you arrived in South America.
Yeah, I mean, that's one way of looking at it. I feel like, I mean, sometimes certain things can make you more of who you are in some ways, but I think what was particularly challenging is that there wasn't a follow boat, and so it was truly alone. But I mean, I think the biggest thing that you can gain from doing big challenges is the confidence to know that you can handle more than you think. And we're so connected, that's so easy to go online and go on emails and get on the phone. And I think it's also refreshing to know that you can be with yourself. You can spend time with yourself, that it doesn't have to be this scary thing to avoid, but some kind of calming place to embrace. So I very much saw that space as solitude rather than like the enjoyment of being with yourself rather than loneliness, which is not something most people would, myself included, would want.
Yeah, it's interesting. You say we are pretty much uber connected, right?
Yeah.
Yet on so many levels, I feel like we're not really connected. We're not connected to here. We're not connected to nature. And I would imagine that by doing that solo row across South America, to South America, you must have, as you explained, experienced this kind of oneness with everything, including yourself, because you were absolutely forced to be in that space. Whereas every day you're not, because you text, you Google, you do all this kind of stuff. What was the greatest lesson that you learnt from being completely forced to be in solitude with nature and with yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's it's not necessarily like yeah. So I've done different meditation retreats to prepare for this. And I think it's just a level of contentment that you can't really feel or access unless you do the thing. So yes, I can say contentment, but it's not just a word. It's like this chiseling away of all this junk that keeps us from being content. So, yeah, I mean, I think the biggest life lesson would be that just because you think you can't do something doesn't mean you're right. I mean, I wasn't supposed to be the person to do that row, meaning I grew up as a bench warmer. I just thought I wasn't fit. And so in a lot of ways, I was the underdog, and I decided to row across the Atlantic before I even knew how to row. And it was a huge leap of faith. But we tell ourselves these stories of, you know, what's possible, what we're capable of without actually trying. And so, I mean, if you don't think you could row across the Atlantic, that's fine. But unless you try, you don't really know. So
it's interesting you say that. I've always had this urge to not necessarily row, but to do something in complete solitude, whether it's Antarctica, whether it's, you know, rowing across the Atlantic. And I'm one of those people, I've done a lot of interesting stuff, right? But I'm one of those people that's like, I don't know how I could do that. I literally don't know how I could do that. Yeah, you've just explained that you weren't like that too. And now you're not like that because you rowed across the Atlantic. So how do you get the everyday person to truly believe in themselves?
Well, I don't think you need to believe in yourself. I think you just need to do it. Like, I didn't believe in myself 100%. So I think thinking you need to believe in yourself holds you back from doing things. Thinking you need to be motivated holds you back from doing things. Anytime you put any of those things, I don't think you actually need it. You just need to do it, if that makes sense. So I think there's a heavy emphasis on feeling a thing. Like, I'll do it when I feel a thing. You don't need to. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think with endurance and with different challenges, like, there's that saying, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right, or whatever. And I don't really believe that. I think you can have doubts and you could be proven wrong. And so you're allowed to be, you're allowed to have those feelings, but just don't follow them. Yeah. So, but that's cool that you've considered doing something. Like, do you think you'd go warmer, colder?
I'm a fan of both. I mean, you know, just the epicness of doing a row across the Atlantic, or just the epicness of walking to the North Pole or the South Pole or whatever. Yeah. It's a life-changing thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you know this better than I do.
Was your favorite, like, adventure you've been on so far, and an adventure that you're most looking forward to?
So I think my most favorite adventure must be when I took the vintage yellow motorbike and I circumnavigated the world back to LA, LA to LA with no money, nothing. That was an external adventure, yet also an internal adventure, which I guess is what I was trying to get at the beginning. Your adventure from the rowing across the Atlantic must have been an internal adventure, primarily over the external, right?
Yes, because I mean, I was looking at the same thing every day. I mean, it's blue on blue, doing the same thing every day. So yeah, I saw wildlife, but for the most part, it was you against you against, wanting to give up and that kind of thing.
Did you ever have any moments of like connection to the divine, connection to something that was beyond yourself?
So I have a faith life now, but because when I did that, I was more, this is it. There's nothing more. I think I closed myself off from that. But I mean, seeing dolphins and like one of the cooler moments was I was reaching the 4th way mark And I was like, okay, I want to celebrate. Let's do something cool. Should I eat 2 Snickers bars or maybe 3? Like, I didn't know what to do. And so I think there was like that divine intervention where there's a pod of dolphins that showed up exactly when I reached that 4th way mark. And yeah, it was just, a really beautiful moment out at there when you're kind of feeling alone and you do a marathon and like the whole city is taken over by signs, and which is great. And the row, you don't have anything, no signs, nothing. All you have is your GPS, which you hope is telling you the right thing. So it was really cool having those dolphins, and they're very playful. So I felt like they were giving me a show with all their flips and tricks and just, yeah.
Well, maybe that was some divine intervention to remind you of how exceptional what you were doing was.
Yeah. I mean, just being cheered on in that way, I'll take that. Yeah.
So I think a question that interests me is, why do you do what you do? Like, you could do anything, right? Yeah. This is the magic of living in America, let's say, right? We can pretty much do anything. Why did you choose to do all these incredible things? And I'm kind of focusing on the rowing because A, it's amazing, and B, I want to do it, and I probably won't ever have the courage to do it, but one day maybe. But why do you do what you do? Do you know? Do you even know?
Well, yeah, it's really hard to explain this because it's like, you could take a plane. Why would you bother doing that? What's the point? And so there's like a few things. The only reason I think you do some of these things is because you feel called to do them. And we're driven by fear. My greatest fear happens to be regret. And so the idea of me being an 8-year-old woman looking back at my life being like, oh, I should have done those things, and no, I have no more time, like that would be the worst. And so, yes, I'm afraid of sharks. Yes, I'm afraid of failing. Yes, I'm afraid of, looking like an idiot when I set off on these big challenges. And I'm afraid of all those things. But my biggest thing is I'm not okay with, regret and what ifs and if onlys. And that's just a heavy thing. I can't do it. And so, a lot of times it's what I'm most curious about. And, the row was something that I was super curious about. Like, at first it was like, no way, that's not really possible, to wait, how did they do that? Wait, what equipment do they use? Wait, what time of year do they go? Wait, who are these people? And then emailing them. And so a lot of times the thing I do is the thing I'm most curious about, and the thing that seems a little impossible, because that's where the excitement is. I've run like 100-mile runs and all that, and I probably won't do 100-mile. I'll go a little bit further and a little bit further. And it's something, if there's this little thing that's like, oh, it might not be possible, then that's kind of where I know that it's, I don't know, that's super exciting. So I also can't sit very long, I can't sit still. So I've always been kind of moving and crawling on things and climbing things. And, I've always had a lot of energy. So it's a good outlet for me to be doing endurance. So, yeah.
Tell me, do you do speeches?
I do. Yeah. So I had a partnership with H2O for Life. So they're the organization that the funds go to through all these challenges. And so I've been lucky to, speak at schools and get kids involved. And so that's been really rewarding, because kids usually want to do stuff. They're down to help out, get involved, and they have a lot of energy for giving back and making a difference. So,
and what is the main message of your speech? So when someone walks into your speech, what do you wish they walk out with?
I wish that they would walk out with a sense of, wow, maybe I could do more than I thought I could. And oh, I didn't know it was okay to have doubts. I didn't know people who do hard things also have failures. I'm very upfront with my failures and the fact that I wasn't a star athlete. And I mean, it was even in the New York Times right before my journey, like, she's going to try. She probably won't make it. She doesn't look like a big, burly ocean rowing man because it's mainly, bigger men, I guess. And so they pointed out, and I had a really bad boat accident on Lake Erie, nearly lost my boat. And so I love sharing my own failures so other people can say, oh, it's okay to fail. But it's not okay to give up. It's not okay just to be defined by that failure. And that you can, I mean, even the feelings, like I think, you're allowed to feel doubt. You're allowed to do all those things, and giving people permission to do that, and yet still keep finding, your why and honoring the why behind whatever you aspire to do.
That's very profound. And I would say that in some way you're teaching people there's another way, right? Like there's another way. It's not like if someone tells you, oh, you can only go left, you're like, well, no, there's another way.
Yeah.
And sometimes that other way is painful and difficult and challenging, but I'm pretty sure that if you go the other way, you'll have a better life than if you just go left and left and left and left.
Yeah. I mean, my biggest thing is giving back what I've been given. I mean, just hearing the story of a woman with her mom rowing the Atlantic is the story that got me to where I am. And so if I'm able to give that back to someone else as I've been given, and that's the best I can hope for sure.
So I also speak at schools, and one of the greatest moments I've had, and it's leading up to the next question, is when I complete something. So one of the first trips I ever took, I used to be a broker. I quit my job and I started traveling on kindness. And I hitchhiked from Times Square to the Hollywood sign. And, a lot of stuff happened in between. But when I reached the Hollywood sign, it was a magical moment that I will never forget. So I'm curious what it felt like for you when you arrived in South America and you got off your boat and you finished, you'd done it.
Yeah. So there's 3 things I could wrap it up into, and it would be winning an Emmy, because the whole city was there and, just hundreds of people. So winning an Emmy, completing a marathon, because there was that physical, like, wow, and being released out of solitary confinement. So like the worst form of punishment is being alone that long. And so if you put those 3 things together, that would probably be the closest feeling of reaching land. And I couldn't walk. So I looked like I was intoxicated because I still had my like sea legs, but I mean, it was so surreal. My dad was there, my brother was there, and it was in Georgetown, Guyana. And so the tourism department was kind enough to, show us Kaiser Falls and show us the rainforest. And so it was just so surreal to be there. And I was on sensory overload from going from seeing blue to seeing new shapes, and everything smelled so much more, and sounds. And I mean, it took me a long time, a little bit of time to like get used to all the stimuli, and even like decisions. We make hundreds, maybe thousands of decisions every single day. And for 2.5 months, no decisions. I mean, I knew what I was going to eat. I knew where I was going to go. I knew everything. And so my mind didn't kind of go to the next. And so it took me a little bit more time to be like, oh yes, more decisions, because I made all the decisions I needed to make for 2.5 months. But yeah, I mean, to your point about like who you were when you started and ended, in my cabin, the one quote that I wrote was, "The voyage of discovery lies in not seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes." And so I definitely wasn't the same. And I think that's what's cool about endurance challenges, is that you really do end different. I mean, they're very transformational experiences, and you can't get there any other way than to do the thing.
I love that quote. And what new eyes did you bring to the world? Like, how did you see things differently?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. It's just like we live in this little, these are my limits. And then anytime you do something, it just makes it bigger and bigger and bigger. And yeah, you can't help but not see more possibility anytime. And so, yeah, I mean, I definitely have my like values that have been solidified and instilled and through those experiences. And, it's just kind of like innate when people say, I can't, right? Like that's something that I'm sure we always say to each other, myself included, but it's always like taking the thoughts and holding them captive and being like, challenging them and being like, wait, have I tried? Wait, I mean, the fact that anything you could possibly want to do, someone else has probably done it, is proof that it is possible. And so we already know that a lot of things are possible. And so, yeah, I mean, of course there's limits, but it's not a matter of anyone could do anything. Of course not. It's just, we can do more. And, yeah, that if you have a desire to do something, there's probably a reason for it. And a lot of times the reason is because you were meant to do it. So I love when people have ideas to do things, because that's the precursor to doing things. So, yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I'm going to go back to a question I asked kind of at the beginning, and that is, how do you get someone, kind of changing the question a little bit, but how do you get someone who doesn't necessarily have the courage to go and row the world in order to see the world with different eyes? Yeah. How do you get them to see the world with different eyes?
Wait, say that again. How do you get someone to see the world with different eyes?
How do you get someone to see the world with different eyes without having to row across the Atlantic Ocean? What are the real hardcore tips that you can give to another human being that wants to go the other way without going on the crazy round the world trip that I did and the crazy rowing trip that you did?
I mean, I think it's happening right now. I also listen and kind of absorb the experiences of others, and whether that's reading or podcasts, I think that is what is happening right now. That's the beauty of learning from other people's experiences, is that you don't have to go through the thing. And so reading and listening to more podcasts and asking questions and getting curious and with all the information at our fingertips, I think that it's a beautiful thing that we can, and with how popular and how easy it is to get access to video. And so, I guess it's a matter of absorbing that information and immersing yourself with what is available. And of course, I'm in the Coast Guard right now. And so there's some limitations on what I can and can't do, where I can and can't travel. So I definitely look and see what other people are doing to get inspiration, to find my own ways of exploring with where I'm at too.
So what were some of the inspirations for you that got you to where you are today?
So I was a bench warmer, and I needed to take a gym class to graduate from high school, and I took the easiest class I could possibly find, which was walking, running. And I was like, okay, I'm going to put in the least amount of effort and get my easy A and just get on with it. And so I started doing that, just not putting in much effort. And because I was so bored, that's when I tried running 1 mile straight. And that's something I had never done before. And I mean, if I didn't run 1 mile in that gym class, I wouldn't have rode the Atlantic. I wouldn't have cycled across America. I wouldn't have recently set a Guinness World Record in running 11 ultra marathons in 11 days. None of that would have happened without that first 1 mile. And that 1 mile gave me confidence to do 2 and 3. And so the biggest thing is really experience. And although it's, at thousands of miles of swimming, biking, running, rollerblading, it all started small, and all big things start small. And so I think, I think the best place to begin is just very small and continuing to push a little bit further. And with that kind of mindset, you can kind of expand, especially with patience and persistence. So, yeah.
And the philosophy of never giving up.
Yeah.
From the great man, Winston Churchill. So you mentioned that you mentioned that there was a moment where you wanted to give up when you were rowing across the Atlantic. Now, I'm sure there were many, many moments where you wanted to give up.
Oh, yeah.
And what stopped you from giving up?
Well, I'd say the most recent meltdown was I did a 140-mile run. So it was like 30 hours across Maine. And I was at mile 132. And I do everything by my Garmin, like my fueling, and there's not like mile markers on the route. So everything is by my watch. And my friend on her phone, it said that there were like 7 or 8 more miles. And on my watch, it said there was supposed to only be like 4 or 5. And when you haven't slept for over a day, and when I had edema in my leg. So because it was, most ultra runs are on over 100 or on trails, and this was on the road. So my body was feeling it. And so I just remember when I heard that it might be, 8 miles, that felt like someone telling me, oh, you have a marathon to go. I mean, it just felt so much more than my body could handle. And so I went on the side of the road, was ripping up grass and crying and having my little pity party. And I think that's what's beautiful about feelings, is sometimes all they need is this space feelings just need to be felt, right? Sometimes you don't need to change the plan and change everything, but you just need people to be around you and yourself to say, it's okay to feel this way. With endurance, I also have to know my limits. It can be dangerous. And so I do work with the crew to say, what is too far? Am I vomiting? Then we have to stop. Am I, there's kind of gross things that can happen in endurance that we're like, okay, I think it's time. But because none of those things were happening, I could keep going without a doctor being like, okay, you're going to cause permanent damage. So giving yourself the permission to feel it and is probably one of the biggest things. I mean, I think we can be afraid of that and want to stuff that aside and think that we never feel that way. But I've been lucky to be with people that can handle it and know that that's okay. And that's actually a part of it all.
And it's interesting. I guess it's also being okay with the potential to fail, right?
Yeah. Yes.
What has been, this is maybe a bizarre question, but maybe not. What has been your greatest failure?
Oh, well, I mean, I was training to bike race across America, totally wiped out 7 days before the race. My friend and teammate, we were attempting to break a 2-person world record. So we were going to make it across America in 7 days, just the two of us leapfrogging one in front of each other. So yeah, it's a bike race across America, or RAM. And so I broke my pelvis 7 days before. And I mean, we failed to reach that goal, but we were able to make it because I was on a hand bike, which like 2 days later was able to find one and practice a little bit, but not ideal. But we had some friends chip in and do some of those miles. So that was a big, like, oh, that wasn't the plan. I just rollerbladed across the Florida Keys, and I was going down a bridge, and the trail just ended, like it's 120 miles. It's bound to happen every few miles, or, every so often. And so I couldn't stop in time. So I recently tore my ACL, MCL, and sprained my wrist. And I mean, I did finish because I went to the ER and they said nothing was broken and pain is tolerated. But that was another, my body failing ish. But yeah, so I'm currently recovering from that one and just had ACL surgery. But yeah, and I would say the training row on Lake Erie, I got in a boat accident, and this was a few months before the row, and people were like, if you can't even row Lake Erie, why do you think you could row the Atlantic? And so there was a huge amount of doubt, and from that failure of nearly losing my boat and potentially my own life on that accident. So there's always something, but they say it's not an adventure until something goes wrong. So it's been an adventure.
Very true. And what did you learn from those failures? Because it's easy for someone to come onto this podcast and listen to it and be like, oh, she's amazing. She's done all these amazing things. She's rowed across the Atlantic. She's done everything, right? But maybe the greatest lesson is that the lady that's done a lot has learned a lot, actually, from the times she's failed.
Yeah.
And therefore, don't not do something because you think you're going to fail. So anyway, I just told you what I learned, but what did you learn from your greatest failures?
That failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of it. So it's not just this black and white, you're either failing or succeeding. No, it's failure is part of the thing. Like that's inevitable part of the thing. And so I think it's like, a lot of what I do is, for some events, it's sponsorships for reaching out to companies, and I say, well, every no is closer to a yes, and so there's just that, inevitable kind of have to have thick skin about knowing that that's part of it, but that it's worth it at the end of the day. So
I just had an idea.
It
could be completely insane. Oh
yeah, those are the best ones.
Oh my God. So I'm just going to put it out there. Who knows? This is your fault. You told me to just go for it. Right?
Oh, okay.
So have you ever thought about doing like a tandem row across the Pacific?
Oh, yes. Can I explain why? Yes.
Yes, but I'm talking about doing a tandem with an Englishman who is scared of the ocean.
Yeah, I can be. Yes, but I have to be able to cycle from South to North America. So the row was part of a bigger journey to go around the whole world by human power alone. And only 2 men have done it. No woman has done it yet. So that's why most people who row the Atlantic go from one island to the next. And that's why I went mainland to mainland, like continent to continent. And so next year, my goal is to cycle from South to North America. And then from San Francisco, you'd have to row across the Pacific. But yes, the answer is yes.
So if an Englishman sent you an email after a podcast saying, would you like to row across the Pacific Ocean with him, what would you say?
Oh my gosh, when? Like, can you wait until I cycle from South to North America?
Absolutely, of course.
Oh, okay.
100%. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to email you because the Englishman's actually me, believe it or not.
Well,
What?
Are you okay with? It's a long way.
How long is it?
Okay, it's longer. It's 3 times as long as the Atlantic.
But how many days? Like 10 months? A year?
Yeah.
6?
Yeah. 10
A
months.
year?
Yeah, up to a year. But you could do it in 3 stages. We could go to Hawaii. That's only 100 days.
How long? 100 days to Hawaii?
50 to 100, depending on conditions. But I've seen it. Yeah.
Let's do that. Let's do to Hawaii.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
I'm not joking. I'm going to email you afterwards.
Okay, but can you wait until I cycle from?
No, of course. I have to wait for you to get in the zone, and you have to tell me what I need to do. And who knows? You're the one that said be courageous, so I'm being courageous. All right?
Wow. Okay. I mean, yeah, I never intended to go solo for some of these. It's just every time I try to talk people into it, they're like, nah, I don't really want to do that.
No, absolutely. I would go to Hawaii. I mean, maybe not to all the way across the Pacific, but to Hawaii for 50 days. Because you said 50. I know you said 50 to 100, but my brain's going to be like, she said 50. So we're going to do 50.
I think 50 because the boats are better now than when I went across the Atlantic.
Okay, perfect. I'm not joking. I'm going to email you after this podcast.
It is a little weird out there.
Trust me, I've experienced a lot of weirdness on my journeys. It's fine. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. I put my first foot forward to row to Hawaii. Thank you so much. It's a very inspiring story, and it's amazing. It's amazing stuff, you know. And I hope people listen to it and get inspired, maybe not to go to Hawaii, but to, I don't know, quit their job or to ask someone out on a date or something. Because if you can row across the Atlantic by yourself, then they can ask someone on a date, or they can quit their job, or, you know, the little things, as you said. But the little things often lead to big things.
Totally.
Okay?
Yeah.
So thank you very, very much.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
Hello everyone, it's Leon here, aka The Kindness Guy. If you like my videos, which I hope you do, don't forget to press the subscribe button and also to ring the little bell so that the notifications notify you that I have a